Oh my lord. Okay, so hi folks. I am now actually live. So I've been talking to my computer for the last 15 minutes. Yeah, hi black and white, black white. Yeah, I'm here now. I'm live. So I've just been right. So okay. Let me show you this. Okay. Let me show you. So sorry about the screen here. You see this button here? There is a button that says "Go Live." Okay, I clicked that button, go live, and it didn't freaking go live. Apparently, the only place you can go live is inside of YouTube itself, and you have to click it there. Where I'm not really sure why there's no go live button, why it doesn't work. Holy shit. Okay, so we'll start over again. And I don't know how long I've been going for. Oh no. Have I been going for a half hour? Okay. Oh man, we are just in the fun here. All right, let's start over. Hi folks, my name is Brian. Apparently I've been talking to no one again for the last half hour, so that was fucking fun. But we'll do this again. So I'm here to help with the FWEB3 community. I'm an early participant, judge, and now just somebody who's interested in teaching people about this community and everything that we have to offer here. So I am going to be answering questions from the community and to try to explain how this all works. So take fucking two, I guess. So let's start. So the first question is how to read every tab link on Etherscan, Polygon Scan, basically feeling comfortable navigating around those pages. So let's go to an actual transaction. So this is my address that I use. And by the way, can I just, now that I'm just real damn, concerned, can somebody just give me a thumbs up or a like here? I'm going to go here. Can you see this? Because I think I got concurrent viewers. I think I got this going on. I'm checking recommendations now and questions. So now I am actually going here. So I think this is working, but I'm just gonna hold off a second because if this isn't recording, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm seeing I got 2. I got 3. Okay, so we seem to I'm seeing concurrent, like it's going back now. So, all right, I am going to start on the assumption that this is going well, and then go through. So, anywho. Let's read this off Polygon Scan together. So at the very top, you have the address of what account I'm looking at. Should match up with the URL that's up here. On the left side, you have the balance of the native token. So in Polygon, it is Matic. In Ethereum, it is ETH. And then you have, the total balance in whatever that token is, the dollar amount of Matic, and then basically the total value of all the ERC20s, 721s, 115s. These are all just estimates, but it just gives you an idea of how many dollars are really, at play inside this wallet. At the very bottom, you got a few tabs here that are really important. And you're going to kind of bundle these up into two different groups. You got the transactions, internal deposits. So these are all kind of one group. And then you have the ERC20, 721s, and 115s. The transaction columns are all of the transactions you have initiated to someone else. So for example, every single one of my transactions where I said, I want to go and initiate this. So I did a whole bunch of verifies this morning. So you can see all my verify transactions here. You can see the mints, you can see the multi-calls, anything that I go to. That all happens here and that gets collected here. So you can see I initiated 76 transactions. Internal transactions are those where I am the recipient of some call, something happening. So for example, the FWEB3 Matic community sent me something and that got sent to my address. And you can see that there. By the way, this Brian Schuster's account is all done by this name tag up here. This is just to use. So once you sign up for a profile, you can go and tag different names here. So for example, this is just for me. You can't see this, you can't do anything with it. But for your own account, if you want to do that, you may give it a name or something. It just makes it easier to go ahead and read. But anyway, internal transactions are those where I am the beneficiary of this. Oh, let me see. Yep. Oh, awesome. You can all see me. Thanks. Thank you. So, and then deposit transactions are really those where some stuff is getting deposited into the account. So in this particular case, I'm getting, Matic. So you see 168 Matic here, and this is top level. So that's really the first three tabs. The next tabs get a little bit more interesting. So ERC 721 ERC 20 token transactions are really any place that I'm sending or receiving being shown in the account. So you can see all these activities where I just received a whole bunch of FWEB3, from the pool. Basically, I was trying to rebalance it this morning. So you can see those transactions. You can see now I also sent 3,000 yesterday. And you can see a bunch of transactions happening here on this tab. So this is all of the ERC 20 transactions, both where I'm sending and receiving, all on this column. ERC 721, which again are non-fungible tokens, is the same thing. You can see I'm sent, all the sends and receives are also happening here as well. So if I sent a token, it would show up here to do, and show that, I sent it out. The reason the from is the null address is because it's a mint, that I minted that token, so it came out. So that's why it's, it's set up that way. And then ERC 1155, I actually have never interacted with this sort of token. I've never bought it or sold it. These are all airdrops. So apparently on my Matic account, 100 days ago, I got something sent to me via OpenSea, and I got a whole bunch of stuff sent to me. So this was like just free stuff. Like yesterday, I got something sent to me from the High Apes Club. No clue what that is. It just got sent to me automatically. So cool, I guess. And just real quickly, the difference between an ERC 721 and an ERC 115 is that on an ERC 721, this token ID is basically the only token ID that can ever exist for this particular token. So once you own token, for example, 9 on the FWEB3 Diamond, which again is that diamond contract we all use, no one can ever own that again. That's not true for ERC 1155s. Like I can have token ID and then mint 100 token ID 1s, and then I can have token ID 2 and mint 100 of those. The purpose of that are things like game tokens, for example. Like if I am in, World of Warcraft, for example, and I want to create an epic item, for example, and I want to give it all these special traits. So I give it a token ID of a particular amount, I mint 100 of them, and I send them out to the world. So it creates scarcity, but it's not unique to one token. So ERC 721s are non-fungible tokens, and 1155 is a different standard. So the way I can see these being used in the future is like, club memberships, for example, where it's like you can get into the club and it's exclusive, but like you don't need special traits per, per door, per, token. You can just have one and it be the same everywhere. So that's what these columns are. So that explains all the transaction columns that you can dive into. Now you have two more. You have analytics, which just tells you what's actually going on, how much activity is going on, for that account. And then finally, the comments. So this one is really not that interesting unless you suspect that there's something weird going on with an account. So for example, like every time there is a hack or some contract is found to be fraudulent, these comments on Etherscan or Polygon Scan will blow up. They will go and say, don't use this. There's something weird happening. Don't trust this at all. So that's why you would go and you use this. So if you wanted to leave a comment, you could here, but it's really a good idea. It's really mostly useful just for hacks. That's the big thing. And that explains the basics of what's going on here. So transactions are account transactions I send out to the world. Internal transactions are internal transactions that are not ERC 20, 721, 115 that are being sent to me. So mostly just Matic transactions. Deposits are tokens being deposited into the account. ERC 20 is all my ERC 20 accounts. ERC 721 is all the ERC 721. And all the ERC 1155 are, ERC 1155 transactions. So pretty straightforward. So that's the first question. Second, how do you read and understand a contract at a high level, and what are some of the red flags you should work out? So, okay. So there's two answers to, there's really two questions here. One, how do you read a contract? And two, how do you make sure you don't get rugged, basically? How do you make sure it's out there? So the first thing you want to do when reading a contract is you're going to want to take the contract address you think to use. This is the FWEB3 Matic community faucet out there. So this is the one that, anytime you request, that 0.1 Matic comes from this address. And the first thing you want to do is you want to go to check this contract, and you're going to see that it's been verified. So I uploaded the code here, and you can now see, what it actually does. So the first thing you really want to do is you actually want to go and see what the base contract is. So for example, like I have this file called contract ether faucet, which is really the contract I'm using, but there's a whole bunch of other shit that's up here, right? I mean, hundreds of lines beforehand. That's because this is Open Zeppelin. So if I'm using Open Zeppelin and I'm using that as my contract, I'm basically saying I'm using some other standard to basically go, create my own contract. Open Zeppelin is industry standard. It's the, what people use for pretty much ERC 20, 721, whatever. It makes it easy to pull in, makes it easy to, pull this out. And as long as I'm not changing this code up here, as long as I'm not moving it, it's pretty safe. How do I know if I've changed this code? Well, we'll get to that in a second, but let's just assume that I haven't done it. So really, assuming that it's just the standard Open Zeppelin code, really the only thing you need to look at is, well, what did I add on top of that, right? So here's the Schuster Ether faucet, and you can see that, okay, the main contract here is the faucet address. And if you look at your contract, you take a look at the faucet sends, you can see that this is what's being called. So how do I know what's going on? Well, these require statements are all just saying, you need to pass this threshold and then you'll go through. So all it's doing is it's limiting. So it's not actually sending anything. It's just checking some stuff and failing if it doesn't go through. Then I'm doing my first change here, timeouts 2 equals block.timestamp. So that's basically sending a timeout to, make sure that you don't call this multiple times. So you can't just call it over and over again. Nothing really big. The only thing that's actually sending something is actually right here, this to.call. So this used to be to.transfer, but because the Ethereum standard changed, the EVM changed how much gas is needed for a call. Excuse me. You needed to use the to.call from now on to make sure that it wouldn't fail. So a little less easy to read, but all you're doing is you're saying to, so this address payable to .call value. So all you're doing is you're sending this value, the faucet dripping out, to this address. And then you got a require statement, and then you got an emit statement. So nothing really bad is going on here. So, when you call an address, that's what you're going to be watching out for. That's what you're going to be looking for. You're trying to make sure that there's no loopholes there or something. And so what would be a loophole that you're looking for? Well, one, you're looking for weird transfers, like weird approvals, like, weird approvals to some address, doing that and making sure it's out there. But I'm going to be honest. If you're reading a contract like this, it means the owner of it had to upload it. And if the owner doesn't want you to know what they're going to do, it's much easier not to upload the code rather than just let you go about and people get scammed. So there are loopholes that people can use. Like, for example, I transfer all of your tokens. I give you a ton of approvals. I read your balance and send them out. I do a to.call. But to my address from you, you can see those sorts of things. So that's like how you read it at a high level, basically. You find the transaction you're using, you go and take a look at what it's actually doing, and then you basically just follow the thread. It's really just, auditing at that point. But there's kind of a second question here. What are the red flags you should watch out for? This is much more interesting. What's happening with these transactions is much more of a social engineering problem than you having to know the code. Because here's the thing. A scammer is not going to upload their contract. So that's the first thing. If you can't read their code, if their source code hasn't been verified, that's a red flag one, that they didn't verify. Sometimes people are lazy. That can happen too. But, usually it's easy to verify if you have the code. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing you want to do then is to find the number of transactions. And what you're looking for is lots of activity over long periods of time. So like so for example, let's say I go to one person and I go to them and say, hey, I need you to use this code to do that. And then I steal your, NFT, right? Or I do something like that. Well, if you go on to the, blockchain, you do that, If that happens once, somebody's going to be going to the comments, somebody's going to be blowing up and saying, this guy stole my fucking NFT, don't use this to make that happen. So what's going to happen? Well, people are going to stop using it. They're going to blow up Twitter. They're going to know it's going to happen. They're going to post the source code out there, and no one's going to use that contract. So what is the scammer going to do? They're going to deploy another contract, another activity, something else to go do that. They're not going to go verify it, and they're going to do that. So if you see lots of transactions over long periods of time, that is safer than the alternative. So that's really the first thing. The next thing is, if you see a lot of activity going, if you see, no contract code and they're trying to reach out to you to do something, that's also a red flag. So let's say, for example, like, I'm, Mega Penguins, for example, like my favorite project right now in the NFT space is Mecha Penguins, because I own a Pengu, I call him Pengu. This creates kind of like a, mecha, it uses the base NFT and creates a mechanical guy on top of it. Absolutely love this. But here's the thing. I heard about this and I reached out to these guys because I wanted to connect it to do there. So like that's a lot safer than the opposite, right? Like if somebody came to me and said, hey, you need to go and mint a contract. It's going to be so big, it's going to blow up, but get out of it quickly. And they send it to me. I'm not really safe. So the way I got that is actually it's actually from Pendulette. Actually, he's a magician out in Las Vegas. If you've ever watched Bullshit growing up or anything like that, he was one of the co-hosts there. He actually had a great analogy that said, like, let's say I have I'm driving a Maserati or a BMW or some car, and all of a sudden I got like a family emergency. My mom's in the hospital and like I need to get, or I'm having a baby and I need to go, and I need to like leave immediately, and I can't take my car. There's a traffic jam, something. If I go into a random store, go into a random Starbucks and go point to a random person and say, hey, I need you to watch my car. I have an emergency. Can you watch it? The chance of you being safe is pretty high. Your car's probably really safe. Even though they have the keys and do that, it's pretty safe. However, if I'm panicked and I'm out in the street and saying, oh no, I got a problem, and somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I'll watch your car for you, I need to be careful. Why? Because the chance of me going and getting somebody who's going to scam me out of a crowd of random is very small. The number of well-meaning people in the world is way, way, way higher than not so well-meaning people. But if somebody comes to me and is hunting me out, the chance of them doing that and them being a bad actor is much, much, much higher. Scammers are likely to go hunt. Scammers go hunting, but they don't, they don't want to be found. So that's kind of the, just kind of the nature of how these things work. So probably the biggest thing you can do to protect yourself is if somebody messages you, if somebody emails you, if somebody asks and goes and says, hey, I need you to do something for me, go sign this contract and do that, don't sign it. Don't do anything with it. Don't actually go out and actually do that. You can look at the contract, you can go and analyze that, but the chances of you having to sign something is very, very minimal. So for that reason, I would say you don't have to be an expert in the contract to do that. Just watch out for the number of transactions, see if somebody coming out to you, and if worst comes to worst, say no, to do that. So avoid the social engineering. Let me go and take a look here if there's anything in the recommendations channel. There we go. Okay, so I think we are good here. So let's go to the next thing. How to mint directly from a contract as opposed to a website. So this is a great question. So this is true for pretty much everything, but when somebody verifies a contract, what ends up happening is you get read access, which allows you to read from the faucet, and you get to write to the contract as well. So what you do basically is you sign into your account. In this case, I'm attached to my MetaMask. I'm attached to my account. All you do is then you go to this to address. You go through, and I'm going to grab my account because I need that, and I'm going to click write. MetaMask is going to open up. I'm going to get a gas fee. I'm going to say that, and then I can go ahead and confirm. I'm not going to confirm this because I don't want to save the faucet for everyone else, but I'm going to go ahead and reject that and go through, and that's all you do. It's really, really simple. So that's something that's built into Polygon and Etherscan. If you want to go and mint, it works the same way. Like, let me go through and see if the mint contract is here. Here it is. And you can see the same thing. I can go and mint. I can send this out, and I can click write, approve if I want to. Now, if you see this, we are not able to estimate the gas and you're getting a bunch of red flags and the matic seems way, way, way higher than you expect, it's likely because it's going to fail. It's going to fail and it's not going to work because there's something wrong. In this case, I already minted. So it knows that and it sees that something weird's happening. So I just go ahead and reject it. So that one is pretty straightforward. How to check if a contract has any kind of loopholes. Again, you want to be able to go read the contract. If you can't verify the contract, it's like they're either lazy or scamming you, which either one of those things. You don't want to use their contract if they're lazy or if they're trying to scam you. But if they do that, you want to take a look here. Again, weird transfers, weird approvals, lots of transactions going out to one thing. You want to look at anything that just you shouldn't be expecting. Like if you understand how an ERC20 token works, you know that the transfer is not that complicated. You don't need that many approvals. So if you're seeing some weird contracts and weird overrides, that's the sort of area. But again, this is something where the chance of you finding the loophole and you're one of one, it's not very good. But if you have hundreds of people in a community all using these things, all paying attention to it, all you need is one really, really smart person, just somebody who knows how to read these things to go through and figure these things out. So often, if you have questions, you can reach out to your community and say, hey, does this seem weird? Use the FWEB3 community, ask questions. If you go to a different project and go and say, hey, I like this project, but I'm really worried something funky's going on, can you go and do this? You can go and make that happen. And also, that's another thing here, I guess. You actually can audit this contract if you want to. You can put your name, email address, and say who your provider is, and you can see if it has an audit. So if you have an audit on the contract, that means that somebody went through and verified it. So you can also see if it's a really, really big project, they should have this. So for example, let's go and see if Mecha Pengu actually has that. So I'm going to connect my wallet address and connect your Ethereum. Okay, so let's see, because I'm just trying to grab and see if this has been verified. So I'm on Ethereum mainnet now. Great. Mint Penguin. Data. This transaction is not supported, this contract. You can see the data, copy raw transaction data. Oh, I'm trying to see. Yeah, this is an expensive penguin, man, let me tell you. Oh, because I'm minting 3 of these guys. That's why. See, this is the problem because I'm trying to mint from this address. Well, let's see if this works. So I'm gonna reject. Let's see if this address pulls up here. Oh, etherscan.io. Mecha Penguin is not there. Because this has been one of my favorite contracts here. Damn, not finding it. So, okay, so I would need to go verify this. I don't know if this address is here. But basically, if you have these, you can check, like, oh, here it is. Here's a smart contract. Here's the smart contract we're going to here. You can go to the bottom and see here. So in this case, this one wasn't audited, but all the contract code is available here. And that's because audits can cause thousands and thousands of dollars. Here. If the transaction fails, it can go away. Harshal, actually, I will get... So, Harshal, okay. Let me go back to that real quick. If you actually do that, you do risk losing all of the gas. So, let me put it this way. Assume that if you put in the code and it fails, assume that all the gas gets used. The smart contract, in some cases, can be coded that you actually do get code back. That you do get... that you do get gas back if it fails. That sometimes does happen. But if you're in the, you should assume that if it says 1.2 matic, you should assume you're going to lose that and assume you're going to get that back. So always make the assumption that the fee is there, that you're going to have to pay for it, and you have to do that. So there really isn't such a thing as the fee being waived on the network. You're always paying even if it fails. And that's really bad for some of these contracts where like there's a big minting event that some people actually like lose the fee and they're paying like 1 to 2 ETH per transaction to try to get that fee, that paid. So anywho, you can also, going back to my main example, you have the smart contract here that's open. You can see all the code, and sometimes, occasionally, you'll get an audit contract down here. And for bigger projects, you actually might go and see that. So, so the loopholes you're really looking for here is, again, weird approvals, weird transfers, and being able to see it. But more likely than not, if somebody's trying to scam you, they're not going to approve the contract. Yeah, no, Harshal, that is that's 100% correct. Sometimes they are very high, which means that if they are very high and you don't need to send the fee, don't send it. Wait till the network comes down. So that's the thing. If it is a high fee, you should expect to lose that fee, to do that, which means that if you're worried about losing that, don't use the network. Or you take the risk and say, I'm willing to lose zero point 0.2 ETH because this mint is big enough for me, or this transaction is big enough. So next question here. How to interpret messages before signing anything. Again, okay, so that's the part that I don't really like about how this works today. So like if I go and do a write here to address. So like let's say I do this right here and I go and do this. Like I know exactly what this is today. Oh, I need to connect my Web3 provider. I go to MetaMask. And I need to switch over to Polygon Scan. So let me go to, I'm on the testnet. There we go. Great. Okay. So I'm going and writing here. Let me open this up a little bit so I can see the address. I can see the name of the transaction at the top. So I guess that's the first thing. You can see the name of what you're actually transacting against. And you can see where it's actually, so you can see the name of it, what's going through. The problem is the data doesn't really show up here. That's the downside of this. The hex code of it does though, which gets a little bit more. So you can copy the raw transaction data. Let's actually see how this pops up here. So if I go and just throw this into, oh, whoops. If I just pop this into here, it doesn't really do anything for you. So like, so this is the thing, for a layman, this is going to be like super freaking challenging. But yeah, so I got my faucet transaction to go through. It's called faucet. It's called Polygon Scan to go through, but I don't actually have the transaction here. Like I don't actually see it. Well, actually I do. I have this here so I can see here. So I take that back. So like, let's go to the website, for example. Like, let's take a look at somebody who needs to be verified, for example, and see if we can use that example. So finish line, and let's go to this person here. So I have them that need to be verified, and I'm going to reject this, and I'm going to click verify here. So how do you see what's going on here? So I got an address. I can view that on the Block Explorer. So I can see what the contract does. So that's the first thing I can do. I can go into contract. I can go and see what's going on here, and I can view what's happening. So that's the first time. That's the first good thing. The next thing is that it's only called contract interaction. And this is kind of the shitty part of MetaMask today. It's not giving me data. It's not giving anything. All I got is this code here. So let's go and copy the code and let's actually review it. So this is a little bit deeper than you need. So when you send a contract interaction, these first 4 bytes are actually the function code. So that's the equivalent of like you calling a function in Ethereum. And in this case, it's 76FA6554. And the rest of this is just data for that transaction. That's just the data that's being sent out to do it. So unfortunately, though, because I'm going to the website and verified, and it's just called a contract interaction, I'm not 100% certain what this is. Like to go through. And for me to figure that out would be a pretty big pain in the butt. Let's see if I can actually even go and do it, even knowing exactly what it is. So I can go to the contract. I know I'm doing a write, but I don't know which one of these I'm actually doing. So I need to go and, so like, let's say I wanted to do a win. Like in theory, I should get like some code here that says to me, oh, okay, I'm getting a, I should be able to see what this code is, but I actually don't. So really the only way today that I would be able to verify which one of these I'm actually using just based on MetaMask is either one, we need to be doing something better on the website to make this clear what you're calling here, or you kind of have to trust it. That's kind of bullshit, in my opinion. I think that maybe there's something I'm missing because I don't even know what type of function I'm calling. So you just have to kind of do that. So that makes it really, really uncomfortable to be able to go and do anything. That's actually kind of sad. And something I think hopefully we can do something better at, because at the very least, you should see what function it is. Data isn't even available here. You can take a look at the hex code, but no one's really going to know what the fuck this actually means. And even if you go to the contract, even though it would be super easy to just add a contract code right next to it, to say, oh, this is the function, that would actually make it super easy, but it doesn't do that today. So, yeah, you can't really do it today. That's a really shitty answer, but that's the answer we have today. Again, it's a new area to do that. Once again, you can't verify it directly, but you can verify it indirectly by all the things I mentioned earlier in the stream. So, MetaMask. So, next thing. Would love to learn more about contracts and how sometimes people can read them and find loopholes to whitelist to prevent that from happening. So, okay, so I don't have a specific example, but I have heard of that sort of hack happening where they find to do that. And often it's because of some complexity error inside the smart contract. So here's the balance of smart contract security. You are always going to be balancing usability and security. Those exist on a scale. And to give you an example of what that means here, so let's think of a really easy one. For example, your house. So, what is the easiest way to assume you have a door to the front of your house? The most usable thing for your house would be to just have a knob with no lock. If you wanted to walk into your house, if you wanted to go and just go in, you would have no lock. You open it up, open the door, close it behind you. It's easiest. However, that's the most usable, but the least secure. Because who's to stop anyone from walking through that door? Well, no one. If a criminal wanted to walk through, if a random stranger wanted to walk through, they could all do that. So that's on that end. However, what would be like the most secure? What would be like the most secure? Well, I could have multiple locks with multiple different keys. Or maybe even something high tech where, I have to use a PIN code or something like that. Like security, I could get very, very, very secure. Maybe even have like something futuristic like an eye scan on my door to make that happen, right? And what ends up happening then is like, okay, well, let's say, for example, like I forget my PIN. Like it's super secure. But like if I have 3 separate locks, for example, but I forget one of the keys, I'm now locked out of my house. Very low usability, there. I always have to have my keys. I always have to have my PIN, or maybe I forget a PIN or something like that or whatever. So in that case, everyone's locked out of the house. So it's highly, highly secure, but including me. So it's not. So what ends up happening with these smart contracts? Well, let me give you an example with my smart contract that I wrote for this. So let's see. Let's see the Matic. So for example, we wrote this contract initially to basically go and have a fixed amount of Matic that's sent. So for example, we made it simple, highly usable. So simple, not many moving parts here. But when we first set out this contract, we made it so that the ERC20 address was set, so you couldn't change this later. The drip amount was set, so you couldn't change that. The token minimum was set, and the timeout was set to be able to go and use this. So highly usable, right? Which means that these can't be changed anywhere. And so it makes the contract very simple. But let's say, for example, I wanted to be able to change the minimum tokens required. Like let's say, for example, it's next year and the price of FWEB3 has gone up to $1. All of a sudden, you need $100 of FWEB3 to get any sort of Matic. And the Matic base is very, very small to go through. So all of a sudden, not very usable. We could have added a function here that's only owner to change that amount. So we're making it a little bit more usable, but also a little bit less secure. Because let's say, for example, I write that code to change the faucet drip base amount and leave a loophole. I make a single mistake in that contract to where anyone who comes in can go and change that. What happens? Well, the faucet drip base can basically be extended infinitely. They can go off and say it's 1 million or however much is in there. And then one person can drain our entire faucet over the course of a single transaction. That wouldn't be good.
So more usable, less secure. That's what's happening with a lot of these contracts. They can make it super simple. They can write out one contract that does exactly what they want. And it can be bulletproof because it's kind of like, here's the thing. If I turn the door and fucking weld it shut, guess what? No one can get in, but no one can use it either, So now that's balancing. So you're trying to balance this where you're making it more usable while not sacrificing any security preferably. But make it as secure as possible. But the truth is, enough complex interactions, which you need to be able to do stuff like I just said there. You miss one thing and all of a sudden becomes insecure. And so that's what leads to like these whitelist problems and these, contracts that all of a sudden can print infinite money and things like that. It's complexity that's caused that doesn't get caught until, well, it's often too late, which is one of the issues with smart contracts and honestly not having them upgradable. That's another issue too. But the community is trying to slowly fix that. So alrighty. So now we have the next question. All right. How to contract if you... Okay, so I've already covered the scams earlier then, so we talked a lot about that. Okay, I think on a recent project, and this happened to tons in the past, but the most recent example I think of is CyberFrogs, and during their whitelist mint, 2 wallets were able to find a loophole to bypass security and mint 100 each, where each whitelist was originally supposed to get 1. This caused several whitelist members to not get any and put the team on bad rep. I guess this also ties into security. So again, usability, security in that particular answer. So Zyle had a very interesting question there. So yeah, that's what happened. I don't know what happened in particular with CyberFrogs, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that there was some interaction they didn't 100% test and think through, and that's when they got that problem there. So that's the next question. Okay, so there's a specific example of Squid Game coin. So let's go and see Squid Game coin. So we're going to actually tie this one out here. How a Squid Game coin... All right, so we don't know this. So we know it got away with a scan. Squid Game cost 20,000 after contract address. So let's see if we can go and analyze this. So first off, let's see if the comments are on point here. So no comments, no holders to do that. So let's see if the contract's there. Nat spec. That's interesting. Solidity contract can use special form of comments to provide rich documentation. So here's the thing. I can't read the contract here on Etherscan. I don't know 100% why. So I thought I would be able to go through and see the contract. So even though it's right, I can write to it and read to it. Included below are taken from the contract source code NAT spec. Etherscan cannot provide any guarantee on safety or accuracy. So they had the read and write, but they don't have anything on this here. So I wasn't able to see that. So like basically what I've heard these coins like this doing is what they'll do is, again, they will overwrite the transfer. So let me show you what I mean. Solidity override. Let's see, does this have an method override? Okay. So here is an example of what an override does. So when I use like, open Zeppelin, for example, there may be some times that I want to override the base contract to do something else. Like for example, when you use the owner Open Zeppelin contract, you have the right to revoke ownership of a contract, to do something. But sometimes that's not a good idea. Like, for example, like on Comrade Token, for example, where we want to be able to update the sales amount and be able to do stuff, while we may not want an individual to be an owner, we may want a multi-sig to be an owner. But if you revoke that ownership, it's effectively locked. That's the equivalent of welding the door shut, which might do that. So you may want to override some functions in owner, for example, and use this override function to basically cause it to fail every single time, to say, to do something. So that's what an override does. However, what might actually happen there is somebody very likely, again, because I don't see the code, I can't actually tell you what it does, but if I had to guess, what they would do is they would override the transfer so that instead of sending out ERC 20 tokens to another contract, it will go to your wallet, take out all the Ethereum or something, or some ERC 720, or maybe some common ERC 20 tokens, and automatically send those to themselves. And that's actually not very hard to do. That you can go off and do that. You can send them to yourself. Oh, please zoom in. Yes, I am sorry. Harshal, there you go. Can you see that now? It looks a little bit bigger. There you go. So what you likely do is you override the function, make an interface to some common ERC20 tokens, read a bunch of balances real quick, and then go and pull out everything that you can and then go and send it. There's nothing stopping you from being able to do that, to make that happen. If you sign a contract and transfer, it can go and make that happen. So there's so I'm not sure if there's anything in Solidity that makes sure that one ERC20 token can be sent per time. Maybe there's something like that. But unless there's something baseline that stops that from happening, that would be a way to go through. So you're really using this override to do something and make that happen. But again, you see with the Squid Game token, for example, they're using this special thing, which I'm not even aware of what NatSpec does. But basically, it's allowing you to apparently not have to give the contract. So, and you can see what's going on here. You can override, you can do some weird things. Alrighty. So that's one type of scam. Again, the biggest thing is just avoid social engineering. That is your best way to make sure that you don't actually get taken advantage of. So that's Squid Game, or that's Squid Token, and that might be what's going on there. Another Q, please explain liquidity tokenomics at 3 levels: beginning, intermediate, and okay. So liquidity. Let's go over to Uniswap real quick. And let's go and watch the app. We're on Polygon, we're doing this, and I have my pools open. So, okay. So, when you are using a token, and this is, by the way, true for any market, the stock market, currency exchanges, token exchanges, centralized exchanges like Coinbase, and decentralizations like Uniswap. In order for you to be able to trade token A for token B, or asset A for asset B, somebody has to be willing to trade with you, or willing to provide, assets to go through it. Like, let's say, for example, like you want to buy Apple and I want to buy Microsoft. Like, in order for you, like, let's say, for example, like you hate Apple, it's a big mistake, and you were like bullish on Microsoft and you want to sell it. Well, the truth is that like somebody has to be willing to buy or trade for you to get out of Apple into Microsoft to go and do that. Like, somebody has to do that. And the state of kind of having a market available to allow you to be able to trade from one asset to another is kind of the general concept of liquidity. Like, there's going to be a specific example I give there, but that's all we're really trying to say, that as you go into the market, like if you say a market is illiquid, IL liquid, to go through, what you're saying is that you really can't sell out of it. Like, you own a bunch of assets, like they could be worth billions and billions of dollars, but if you can't get out of it, if you can't sell it, or there's some circumstance to do it, it's kind of, it's illiquid. Versus like something that's highly liquid, for example, means that, well, you can get out of it immediately if you wanted to. Like, if I owned a bunch of US dollars, for example, and I wanted to get rid of them to buy something else, to buy something, that's highly, highly, highly liquid. That means that there's a lot of liquidity out there. But at the core, when we're talking about liquidity, we're talking to say, how likely are you to get in and out of that token, to go through? And in the cryptocurrency market, like the most liquid assets, which means there's a lot of different people willing to trade in and out of it, are things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, some of the big base tokens, Tether, for example. Like, those are like the most liquid because there's the most tokens that exist out there. Versus like the most illiquid would be things like BitConnect, for example. I don't know if you know BitConnect, but BitConnect was a huge scam back in the, the ICO era, 2017, 2018. It was a Ponzi scheme. And like today, for example, like if you wanted to buy or sell this, literally there is no market on earth that sells this shit anymore. Yes, Harshal. Yeah. You mean a seller needs a buyer, doesn't matter which market it is. That's, I guess, I'm not sure exactly what I said, but yeah, for example, like if I wanted to buy BitConnect, somebody needs to be willing to sell it to me at something. At the base level,
somebody needs to be willing to say, well, okay, well, I will buy that BitConnect from you and I'm going to exchange something else, currency, dollars, this goat I have over here, do you want this goat? Here, here's the BitConnect to goat exchange rate now, go off, take your fucking goat with you, to go through. That's kind of like liquid at a high level. So, that's what it means. So let's get down to what it actually means in cryptocurrency. So we have the most liquid, which is the Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever assets sitting out over here that are most liquid. Then you have the most illiquid, which are things that like no one's willing to sell. So you can have $1 billion worth of BitConnect. No one's going to be buying that for you. It's highly, highly illiquid. And then we have everything else that sits in the middle, right? And so like there isn't a hard, I'm not going to say there's a hard and fast rule on what's like, if something's more liquid or not. But like FWEB3 Dematic, for example, tends to be highly illiquid right now. And why is that? Well, the reason why it's highly illiquid is that, one, there's not a lot of things you can exchange. Like, for example, Ethereum is highly liquid because there are many, 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 many different things you can switch Ethereum for. For example, I can go into, there are Ethereum in Matic pairs, Ethereum and Bitcoin, Ethereum and Cosmos, Ethereum and these. So there's lots and lots of different ways that I can go and trade out of my Ethereum into something else. Versus like, for example, for FWEB3, for example, it's only got one. It's only got one way you can trade out, only on Matic. And there's only one exchange right now in the world, unless somebody else sends something else, that you can do this, only on Uniswap. You think about Bitcoin, every single exchange on cryptocurrency exchange on Earth supports Bitcoin transactions. But zero support FWEB3. And even on DEXs, most decentralized exchanges will support Ethereum. Even those that are not EVM compatible will support Ethereum through wrapped Ethereum, or some variation of that to get the to something that looks more liquid, to do that. So there's lots of places to do that. So you can think of more liquid assets have more exchanges, more liquid assets have more buying pairs, to do that. More liquid assets have more liquidity in the pools. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So when I go to, CoinMarketCap, and let's go to Ethereum, and I go to the markets, for example, here are all of the places I can go and buy Ethereum. Look at all the different ways I can do that. And then you can see the volume of activity that is on there. And you can take a look at the liquidity score even. Liquidity score pairs 0 to 1,000 based on the slippage incurred by various order sizes. Higher score indicates more liquid market. So what they mean here is that there are lots and lots of different fees. There's lots of pays. So this is a more complex. So for our discussion, this is more complex than I want to get into. But basically, you're saying tons of volume, tons of activity, lots of money flying back and forth, lots of different places. That is a more liquid market. Versus on Uniswap, you're at a less liquid market, or at least for FWEB3 Matic, it's less liquid because one, there's only one, buying pair that you can actually do. And two, we just don't have that many damn tokens in here right now. You have some Matic, do that. You have some, FWEB3. But the truth is, we could become illiquid overnight. Now, we're not illiquid, because we do have a lot of people who are using this. And you can actually exchange it, right? You can exchange FWEB3 for something. It's just not many pairs. And that's just because we're very new. We haven't had a lot of time out in the market. We're still highly centralized. Sahil owns, the vast majority of our, tokens. And being centralized is not a good take in this market right now. So as we decentralize and more people go through, they'll make the market more apparent, easier to use. But yeah, right now you can see we got some tokens. It will become illiquid once we hit, zero, FWEB3 in this. And it means the market goes, this pool dries up. And because this is the only pool, we're effectively saying we can't exchange FWEB3 for anything right now, and even still. So that leads to an interesting scenario. Like, for example, like if I decided let's say right now, Sahil decided to liquidate. He wanted to sell his 8 million tokens that he has on Ethereum to somebody else. Who would buy that right now? If he wanted to go to an exchange, he can't sell them. I mean, that's the thing. You could literally buy, here, if I go here and I try to buy FWEB3, and I'm selling into Matic, and I decided I want to buy 100,000 tokens, I literally can't. Oh, I'm selling right now, so let me do the opposite. Like I wanted to, buy it out. I want to sell all my Matic and buy the FWEB3. First off, I'll get 13,000 tokens, but there's not 13,000 tokens to be had. There's not enough liquidity in the market. Like the most I can do is, let's see, can I even do 30? Yeah, I can do 30, and basically I would wipe out the pool. So that means that like our market cap right now is like, we're doing less than $100 a day in activity basically, and is the way that we're doing there. Much less than that, which means they're not doing much. So when we go and talk about, how liquidity works in these markets, what we're saying is that total number of pools, total number of tokens, total number of activity on those pools out there, how many people are staking in that. There's a lot of economics, but basically the more of those things you have, the more liquid you are. The less of those things, the less liquid. And that kind of explains it. Hopefully explains it easily enough. Now tokenomics is a bit different. I think I'll have to save that for another activity or another time. Because again, like tokenomics it can be complex, but it explains a lot. So anywho, that's probably best for a standalone lecture. But so for now, do that. So Priya, I think it's a good question, but I think I will have to hold off for another day on that one. All right, I think I'm up for one more question. Unless Harshal, if you have a question, please feel free to ask it. Thought question: is it possible for the value of a token to increase over time? I guess the only way for the value to appreciate over time is through scarcity. I'm looking at value multiplier over time due to, say, completing various tasks through a certain period without needing to amass lots of quantity. Yeah, I mean, that's how all these tokens worked. I mean, the reason Bitcoin got valuable is because it proved its value proposition. People wanted it and bought it out. You don't have to be scarce to be valuable, but like that's the thing. Like if a token is really valuable, they're like you're going to be balancing. Like if you have a supply that's going to raise over time and the value is not jumping by leaps and bounds, it's hard for that value to go up. I mean, you think of the, supply demand curve. I mean, this is like the most basic thing you learn in economics here, right? Is this supply demand curve, right? Here's the supply. Let's say the supply is going to be raising over time and going off here. So this curve will slide, will go to the right, which means that this dot where the market's going to go down, 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 down. What you're saying is with the value, Faye, as the value rises, the demand will also rise. But the problem is if the supply continues slipping this way, the demand either has to accelerate beyond that. So for example, if inflation hits, if a supply is inflationary, even though it's raising by 5% a year, demand might double, then double, then double, then double, then double. So the supply still goes up. But barring something extraordinary happening, like you usually need a scarce supply for it to go up. But yes, I mean, basically the reason why FWEB3 might be useful is because the demand for it goes up. We add more games to this token. It's fun to play. We have more things going on that we may use, to go into, that we may have, we have more things that do. You may get more tokens, for example. We may have like a NFT drop just for, FWEB3 users, for example. That would raise the value. That would do that. That would raise the value and make it easy, make something that somebody wants to, use. So because of that, you would see that value raise. Now the community is very early. So, we have to come up with a better, there's a lot of improvements that need to be made in order for the community to really hit, a new, the next threshold, if you will. But I would say that, if you make the token useful, you make the community good, and things like that, the value will rise simply because people want to be part of the community. That's the thesis right now. So anywho, that is all of the questions that I really have here right now. To go through. Thank you very much for everyone to participate. I hope this was somewhat useful. And yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to send it out. Anyway, thank you so much.